she whispered. "You'll regret choosing me." The rancher smiled. "I already regret waiting this long." The first time Sarah Chen saw the sprawling Montana ranch, she felt like an imposter. The golden fields stretched endlessly, under a sky so vast it made her chest ache with a longing she couldn't name. She'd driven 17 hours straight from Seattle, her entire life crammed into a battered sedan, running from a past that clung to her like smoke. At 32, she'd already buried more dreams than most people dared to dream, and the weight of her failures had carved shadows beneath her eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. She pulled up to the weathered farmhouse just as the sun began its descent, painting everything in shades of amber and regret, and wondered if this was just another mistake in a long line of mistakes that defined her existence. The job posting had been simple. Ranch hand needed. Room and board included. Must be willing to work hard and start immediately. No references required. No questions asked. It was perfect for someone like her, someone with more secrets than qualifications, more scars than credentials. James Thornton stepped off the porch as she killed the engine. He was nothing like she'd imagined. The ad had conjured images of a grizzled old cowboy, but the man walking toward her was maybe 40, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners and hands that looked like they'd rebuilt the world 1,000 times over. His flannel shirt was faded, his jeans worn, but there was something solid about him, something that made her think of oak trees and promises kept. "You must be Sarah," he said, extending a calloused hand. His grip was firm but gentle, the handshake of a man who understood the difference between strength and force. She nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "I can start right away, Mr. Thornton. I'm a hard worker." "I won't let you down." "It's James," he corrected with a soft smile. "And I'm sure you won't. Come on, I'll show you where you'll be staying." The cottage he led her to was small but immaculate, with fresh wildflowers on the table and clean sheets on the bed. As he handed her the key, Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. It had been so long since anyone had offered her kindness without expecting something in return. Over the following weeks, Sarah threw herself into the work with desperate intensity. She mucked stalls before dawn, mended fences until her hands bled, and learned to gentle the horses with a patience she didn't know she possessed. James never pushed her to talk about her past, never asked about the shadows that sometimes crossed her face when she thought no one was watching. He simply worked alongside her, teaching her the rhythms of ranch life with quiet encouragement. But Sarah couldn't escape the gnawing certainty that she didn't deserve this peace. At night, alone in her cottage, memories would ambush her. Her mother's disappointed face when she'd dropped out of nursing school, her ex-husband's cruel words about her worthlessness, the baby she'd lost at 23 that had shattered something fundamental inside her. She'd spent a decade drifting from job to job, city to city, relationship to relationship, always sabotaging anything good before it could be taken from her. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains purple, James finally broke the comfortable silence. "I've been thinking about making you my partner," he said casually, as if he wasn't offering to change her entire life. 50-50 split of the ranch. I'm not getting any younger, and you've got a gift with the animals. With the land. Sarah's blood turned to ice. "No," she said, standing so abruptly her chair scraped against the wood. "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know who I am." James remained seated, watching her with those steady eyes. "So tell me." The words tumbled out like a confession, like poison she'd been holding in her mouth for years. She told him about the addiction that had cost her everything 10 years ago, about the rehab stays and relapses, about waking up in hospitals and shelters in the back seats of strangers' cars. She told him about the daughter she'd given up for adoption because she knew she couldn't be the mother a child deserved. She told him about the restraining order her family had filed, about the bridges she'd burned until there was nothing behind her but ashes. "I've been clean for 3 years, she finished, her voice breaking. "But that doesn't erase what I've done. What I've been. You'll regret choosing me." The silence that followed felt like falling. Sarah waited for him to tell her to pack her things, to get off his property, to take her brokenness somewhere else. Instead, James stood and moved to stand beside her at the railing. "My wife, Emily, died 5 years ago. he said quietly. Cancer. We knew it was coming, had months to prepare, but you're never really ready to lose the person who makes you believe the world is good. He paused, his throat working. After she passed, I spent 2 years barely holding this place together. Started drinking too much. Let the ranch fall apart. Pushed away everyone who tried to help. Sarah turned to look at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. The grief he carried, the loneliness he'd been masking with kindness. My brother-in-law finally showed up one day and told me Emily would be ashamed of what I'd become, James continued. It made me angry enough to get sober, angry enough to start living again. But here's what I learned. We're all broken. Sarah, every single one of us is walking around with pieces of ourselves missing. The question isn't whether we're damaged, it's what we do with our second chances. I don't deserve a second chance, Sarah whispered. James smiled then, soft and sad and infinitely kind. I already regret waiting this long to ask you. Not because you're broken, but because you've spent every day here trying to become someone worthy of redemption. You already are. Sarah, you've been putting yourself back together one fence post, one healed horse, one sunrise at a time. I see who you are now, and that's who I want as my partner. Something inside Sarah shattered and reformed in the same instant, like a bone that had healed crooked and was finally set right. She thought of the horses she'd gentled with patient hands, of the garden she'd planted, that was now blooming with vegetables for the local food bank, of the quiet pride she felt at the end of each exhausting day. She thought of her daughter, 16 now, and the letter she'd finally been brave enough to write last month, not asking for forgiveness, just letting her know she existed and was loved. Okay, she said, the word barely audible. Then stronger. Okay, yes. James pulled a folded paper from his pocket, the partnership agreement he'd already had drawn up, his faith in her documented in legal terms. As Sarah read through it with shaking hands, she saw he'd included provisions for profit sharing with local youth, programs and veterans organizations, ways to make the ranch a place of healing for others who needed second chances. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same spot on the porch, watching a new ranch hand arrive, a young veteran with haunted eyes and hands that trembled. She walked down to greet him with the same quiet kindness James had shown her, understanding now that redemption wasn't something you earned alone. It was something you passed forward. One broken person helping another find their way home. That night, as she and James reviewed the books in the farmhouse office, he caught her smiling. What is it? I was just thinking, Sarah said, about how many times I almost didn't come here. How close I came to driving past and giving up entirely. James nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'm grateful you didn't. This place, we needed you as much as you needed us. And Sarah realized that was the truth she'd been searching for all along, that being needed and needing others wasn't weakness. It was the most human thing in the world. It was how broken people became whole again, not by hiding their cracks, but by letting the light shine through them onto someone else's path.